She was a radical feminist, a pro-choice atheist, and proud of it, until she met Jesus. Today, I'm joined by Evelyn, who now runs a pro-life nonprofit and uses her new YouTube channel to share how Christ completely changed her life. We're going to hear her story of transformation and then talk a little bit about what's really behind left-wing ideology, why it distorts beauty and truth, and how we can reach people caught in that mindset from someone who's been through it herself. So stick around for those questions at the end. That's going to be really awesome stuff that we're going to dive into. So Evelyn, thanks for joining me. I first found you through your testimony video on YouTube. I guess what spurred you to start a YouTube channel? Why don't you just briefly tell us that? What spurred
Yeah.
that on?
So I've been doing social media for a while now. I've mostly been on TikTok doing debates and posting content there. And then I switched to Instagram, and some of my stuff kind of blew up over there. And people were asking me over and over, please do a long form testimony video. And I had been scared of YouTube for so long, but so many people asked me. So I just did it. And it was kind of tough to film, but I got it done. And now I've met a lot of people through YouTube. So I'm going to continue posting more videos here. It's a great place.
Absolutely, including yours truly, the greatest
Yes.
YouTuber ever, Womb to Tomb Apologetics.
Mhm.
And that first video of yours blew up. It got 35,000 views, and that was where you shared how you moved from your childhood into this sort of left-wing uh, echo chamber, and eventually you found your way out of it. So why don't we just start at the beginning? What were the politics and religion of your household when you were growing up as a child?
Yeah, I was raised in a conservative and Christian family. I have 9 siblings, 5 are adopted. We were homeschooled, so we had kind of the stereotypical Christian homeschool upbringing, very strong in Christianity, very strong in the church. So yeah, a lot of my life was filled with youth groups and going to church events, and I wanted to be a missionary when I grew up. So yeah, I had a very, very Christian and conservative upbringing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds kind of like the story most of us have. Oh, we grew up, we were going to youth groups, Bible study, all that stuff. And yet
Mhm.
we know people who go down a route like you did, and we just wonder, how the heck did that happen? And so maybe tell us a little bit about how you were introduced to leftism and sort of anti-Christianity thought a little bit.
Yeah, it was actually from church youth groups and youth retreats. So when I was maybe 13, 14, 15, around that area, I started going to a youth group that was kind of farther away from my house. And the church itself was a conservative, really good theological church. It was great, but the youth group was kind of full of tweens, teenagers who were a little more rebellious. And so I kind of found a little group of people that I liked that were more progressive Christians there. And from that youth group, I was introduced to this youth retreat. Not going to name it, but you basically are locked in a church for 3 to 4 days. And it's a really fun experience for a lot of people. But there was an even bigger group of, again, progressive Christians. So we would all call ourselves Christians and kind of act Christian outwardly. But when we get together and be alone, we would talk about, I wouldn't say leftist ideology at that point, but it was definitely more liberal and progressive ideology. We would talk about how, upset we were with people in the church not being open to homosexuality and transgender ideology and being pro-choice. So we were definitely like lukewarm progressive Christians. And because I kind of wanted to rebel, and because a lot of my friends in that area were showing me social media posts and teaching me this ideology, or at least exposing me to it, and we were talking about it all the time, I kind of just started going deeper and deeper into it, mostly online. A lot of Instagram, TikTok wasn't around back then, but even Facebook, Reddit, Tumblr, those places, they're just kind of a cesspool of this ideology, and you get sucked in really, really easily, even in Christian circles.
Yeah, that is interesting to see how far that can infiltrate, especially even in the youth.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about which of these came first. Was it leftism, or was it sort of atheism that sort of pulled the other? What led to what?
It was definitely the liberalism first, and then that progressed into leftism. I know for a while I was still claiming to be a Christian, even though looking back now, I wouldn't say that I really was. I wasn't showing any fruits, but I would claim to be a Christian. And from, going deeper into leftism, it kind of, you're almost forced to become an atheist. So the leftism dragged me into atheism pretty quickly. Oh, did we lose him?
No, I'm still here.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
hear me? Yeah. But yeah, so that's okay. That's interesting. So as you moved down this path, what was it sort of a slippery slope, or was it all kind of at once? How did this exactly go?
Yeah, I've described it before as it's slow at first and then all at once. So it was very slow going. I'd say maybe 13, 14, 15, even 16 years old. I was definitely more liberal, but I was not at all an extreme leftist yet. And, when Trump first got elected, I was a little bit upset about it, but I was mostly joking. I didn't really care that much, especially because I was so young. Um, but yeah, it's just they get you with so many different things when you're that young. The empathy they really push. You're a bad person if you don't believe that gay people should get married, or whatever it is. You're a bad person if you want to take away women's rights for abortion. And that really hurts a young person's brain as they're trying to grow up and trying to be liked by everybody. So it starts out slow, and then once you get to a point where you've been in liberalism, kind of moderate liberalism for a while, it seems like you just keep getting more and more radicalized, because if you have any disagreements with the extreme left, they start to ostracize you and hate on you for those small disagreements. I remember so many leftists saying that they hated liberals. They still say that they don't like the moderate left, even if it's progressive. They don't like liberals. And so you just kind of go from, well, I was trying to be liked in this way and everyone was telling me I had to be a good person by doing these things and being liberal and moderate. Well, honestly, there's nothing stopping me now from just becoming an extreme leftist, because everyone is telling me that I'm a bad person because I'm not 1000% on board with every single thing that leftists believe. So yeah, it's a very slow trickle, and then all of a sudden the dam breaks and it's just a waterfall.
Yeah, I was going to save this question for later, but I think this is important now that you bring it up. I've heard so many people, especially those who have left Christianity as a child, say that we often hear that Christianity uses fear to
Mhm.
fear of hell, for example, fear of, oh, you're going to get punished for your sins, to keep people in line. Has that been your experience, or would you say that in your view, the left uses fear more? Which one is kind of, I don't know, which one uses pressure like that?
Well, it's definitely, I mean, my personal experience in Christianity, I know everyone might have a different one, but I don't think that anyone has ever told me that I need to do certain things in order to get to heaven. I think the main thought around Christianity is we are saved by grace alone, right? Christ's blood is what saves us. We are going to sin. We all sin. And obviously, we should be working to stop sinning. We should abstain from sin. We should repent. We should try to get better and grow closer to Christ in our walk with God. But we understand that our works are like filthy rags to God, right? So there's no hope for us to get to heaven through works. So I've never felt this fear of damnation or anything. I think the left has much more of a fear tactic. They use fear of the Nazis and the fascists, and they label anyone right of them as those things. And so you're not only pressured through violence, right? We've seen that with so many things recently. You're not only pressured with the threat of violence, but even just social pressure. If you're not loud enough about what they want you to be loud enough, you are ostracized from the communities, you are mocked online. And in some cases, you're even banned on certain social media platforms if you don't have the right views. And they're so past even talking about it now that all they're doing is saying, we're going to do bad and really mean things physically to you if you don't agree with us. They really need blind acceptance in their movement.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes me think, they're kind of the one thing that they accuse everybody else of being, right? You're intolerant. You
Mhm.
use fear to control people. I, I've never had that message at church in my experience. I'm not saying nobody has, but as a Christian, the last thing you should be thinking about is hell because you're supposedly saved from it,
Yeah.
right? How could you be fearing something that you're saved from? I don't understand.
Yeah.
But in any case, as you kind of moved into this left wing phase and you started dyeing your hair every color of the rainbow,
Mhm.
tell us a little about the kind of behavior that you got into, because I think a lot of people won't appreciate just how deep this got. This wasn't like, oh, I was pro-choice and no, a little something here, a
Mhm.
little something there. I mean, this was really radical stuff.
Yeah, it started when I moved out of my parents' house at 18, or yeah, I was like a couple months past 18, and I had this newfound freedom. And I mean, I had been dyeing my hair before that, but the behaviors really started becoming more degenerate when I moved out and I had that freedom and that privacy from my parents, who at that point I still didn't want to disappoint them. So I mean, I don't know what exactly I can say on YouTube. I'll try and use code words maybe, but I was very sexually degenerate in every way possible that you can imagine. I was drinking all the time, doing substances that I should not have been doing. I was chasing, I don't even know, trying to fill that void. I know that sounds cliche, but it's so very true. I felt miserable and alone and sad. And the only way that I could think of to fill that void was doing things that made me feel good in the moment. So, I mean, whether it was just fornication with anyone and everyone, sadly, or it was drowning my sorrows in vodka, or doing more hardcore drugs because I just needed something to feel better. I was absolutely miserable. I had a lot of suicidal ideation, a lot of depression. I was consistently self harming over and over every single day. I had people like constantly calling me because they were worried I was going to do something to myself. And again, I just kept going in the cycle of, the fornication and the drinking and the drugs and everything over and over and over, trying to find some type of peace. And it never came to me. I mean, I would go to protests, I would scream at people, I would try and fill the void by feeling morally superior to even my parents, my poor lovely parents. I would fight with them. Even my husband, now husband's mother-in-law, we would go to her house and just argue with her because she was a Christian. And she's like the sweetest person that I've ever met in my life. And we were chasing anything, to fill that void, and nothing was working.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the story that a lot of people have. Unfortunately, they get down this rabbit hole, and before you know it, it's just out of control.
Mhm.
You talked about, fornication, leads to all sorts of things. You start out with drinking, it leads to another thing.
Mm.
And one thing you highlighted in your video was SSRIs and depression and these sorts of things that not necessarily you dealt with every single one of those, but that a lot of your friends were like this. This wasn't just you, right?
Yeah, I was in a scene, we call it like the underground punk scene. It's in a lot of big cities and areas. There's kind of a scene of like punk alternative emo kids, and I went to a lot of house shows, like literally just people's basements that, my friends who were in bands would go to and watch them and hang out, and all of these substances were offered to us and everything. But the common theme through all of it, I mean, I would say 90% of my friends safely were depressed and were on medication or were trying to get on medication, were in therapy, were constantly posting about how horrible they felt in their lives. They were in and out of relationships. All of their songs had lyrics that were about just feeling so hopeless and so sad and so alone all the time. So yeah, I mean, you're around those people and that affects you even more. So I had already had kind of a history even before extreme leftism of some mental health issues, and when everyone around you is almost glorifying it, like we make jokes about it in that scene, and it's almost like if you're not depressed and anxious, and if you don't have these harmful thoughts about yourself, then you're not cool, because everyone deals with these things. And if you're normal, if you have a normal brain chemistry, then you're kind of pushed out, like, oh, she's a normie, whatever. So it almost makes it like you want to keep doing those things. You want to keep feeling that way, because that's another way to connect to your friend group, which sounds dark, and it is, but I think that's a big feeling in that area.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it, that there's even a sort of a pressure to be not just like, oh, I'm different, a little bit different, right? There's people with different personalities, but to be outright abnormal. Like
Yeah.
everything needs to be different. I need to have a different hair color. I need to be neurodivergent, right? Ooh, that's the better thing to be, right? I need to be LGBTQ. I
Mhm.
need to be listening to this kind of music that's different. Everything is about being sort of an outcast, it sounds like. And that wasn't just something that you were feeling, it was something that was even being reinforced by all the people around you, which
Yeah.
just goes to show you it's not just one or two people. This is part of what this ideology of leftism seems to promote. And we see this all over the place, right? There's pride parades, right? What does that celebrate? LGBTQ, right? They try to make normal things sound like they're the weird things. You're not normal, you're cis. What the
Yeah.
heck is cis? What the heck is that supposed to mean, right?
Mhm.
You're neurodivergent. Oh, yeah, that's what that means. And that's not to say we need to make fun of people who are, in into certain things like that, or that they have some difference of mental capacity or something. But it's just about the idea of glorification of what is abnormal versus, and the shaming of what is average or normal or the way God designed us to be.
Mhm.
And speaking of that, and getting into weird stuff, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey into dabbling with witchcraft, and also the sort of exploring of sexuality that you engaged in and that
Yeah.
you may have been prompted to look into?
Yeah, so the, exploring of my sexuality started, I think, even before my most radical days. I had my only really long-term boyfriend lasted about 2 years, and even in that phase of my life, I was claiming to be bisexual. I don't know if I would ever say that I was. I found women to be beautiful and attractive, but at that point in my life, I was probably more just saying it to, like we were talking about, kind of feel like you're included in that club. But then when I became more radical and leftist, I was like, well, I've found women attractive my whole life. So why not just kind of dabble in that too? And that was actually one of the main reasons that I broke up with my then boyfriend, was because I had not been able to experience that side of myself. So yeah, I mean, I had a very good friend that she insisted that she was straight for most of our friendship. And later in our friendship, she said, well, I think I'm actually falling in love with you. And so I decided, okay, well, I had already experienced, I won't go too much into it, but I had, experienced my bisexuality before that with randos. And I was like, well, I think I would like an actual relationship with a woman and see what that does. And it was a catastrophic disaster, of course, as most lesbian relationships are. But the funniest thing is that I was also dating my now husband at that time. So because my now husband and I were in an open relationship at that point, we decided to just kind of reel in my best friend and just do a throuple kind of thing. And that also was a catastrophic disaster. Don't do that, guys. That was horrible. But that was what was seen as cool and edgy and different. And we were being, sex positive, and we were, rejecting heteronormative stereotypes. It felt empowering. And I really did love my friend, obviously. And I loved my then boyfriend, now husband, of course. But I think I was pushing it too far in kind of the name of being different, like we were talking about. And, ironically, my friend that became my girlfriend also was one of the people that I did some of these substances with. Again, I don't know what I can say, so stop me if I can't say this on YouTube, but we did acid, we did shrooms. And that, those are kind of the more psychedelic drugs. So they're the kind that make you feel more in tune with nature. They make you obviously kind of hallucinate. And when I got into that scene of people, that's how the witchcraft kind of came into my life, was being around the same people that I was talking about before that were kind of in the punk scene were also dabbling in this kind of stuff. And it's again the same thing of wanting to be different and people having this bad view of witches, which we should. Witchcraft is bad, but you want to do the things that are going to make the people in authority, the conservatives, mad. So I started dabbling in witchcraft, and I was always what you would call like the good witch. I did some green witch stuff, which is like natural stuff like that. I did spells. I did the little chants and the affirmations and everything. And I did think that it worked. I, put a protection spell in my boyfriend's car and he didn't get in a car accident. So in my head, that was like, oh, well, if that protection spell wasn't there, then he would have been in a car accident. No evidence for that, but that's what my brain was doing. And even, my boyfriend at the time was dabbling in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. I don't know as much about that, so I won't really talk a whole lot about that, but I know that he had that book, and that was a lot of kind of black magic, sex magic stuff. And this stuff is very real. Like, I know a lot of people freak out when we talk about witchcraft, and some people freak out because they know it's real, and some people freak out because they think I'm lying to them. But this stuff is definitely very real and very scary. And luckily, this phase of my life didn't last super long, but I was definitely a self-proclaimed witch that did spells and chants and affirmations and really believed that it worked.
Yeah, it's one of those things that can kind of it pulls you in with its mystery and its ability to kind of give you hope for like, oh, I have control over things.
Yeah.
Just the other night, I don't know why it was there. I got an ad by some dude reading some like tarot cards or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt myself like lingering, like watching his presentation because he was a very, I don't know, he was very charismatic and stuff, and I was almost fascinated, like, what are these cards? What is this? And I eventually had to stop myself from watching. I had to skip the ad but I watched it for like a good minute or two, because it was just like captivating. It looks interesting. And
Yeah.
so I would just say to people, really do stay away from that stuff. Um, it looks fun. It looks like, oh, it's going to give me hope for something. Sometimes the stuff sounds outright true. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Like the guy was talking about, oh, you're going to get a job. And I'm like, oh, am I job searching right now? Whoa, like it sounds, and some of that could be real. But it's real. It's really bad is what
Yeah.
it is. That's the
Yeah.
only real thing about it. It's, to the extent that any of that stuff is true, those are dark forces. Those are not good things.
Mhm.
They might look good, like, oh, it's telling me my future and stuff. That is a bad thing to get into.
Yeah.
And one thing you mentioned in your testimony that kind of relates to this is how you started thinking after a while of these, the shrooms and the witchcraft, and how you said it was following you in your regular day, and
Mhm.
how you were having some negative experiences. Maybe you can share like one or two,
Yeah.
but you told us how you began to think about it and say, I believe that these evil forces exist. I believe that those things are real. But if that's the case, maybe a good one has to exist too, because where would those have come from? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a couple of the experiences, I did go over some of them in my most recent video too, but one of the biggest things that I was experiencing consistently through my psychotic phase is what I call it, was horrible sleep paralysis. And a lot of people will just brush it off and say, "Oh, that's something biological. It's all explainable by science." But I just don't believe that because of the experiences in sleep paralysis. I can briefly just talk about one of the experiences I had when I was newly pregnant. And so I was still kind of in my leftist phase. It was kind of tapering off, but I was still there. And I had a dream that involved Lilith. And if you know anything about Lilith, I didn't know it was Lilith in the dream, by the way, but it was a woman with beautiful long red hair, red lips, gorgeous woman. And she picked me up by my throat. And I tried, funny enough, in that moment, I tried to say, "In the name of Jesus, I rebuke you," or something along those lines. And I vividly remember her screaming into my face something like, "Haha, you think that he can save you? He's dead." And then she picks me up and kicks me. And I woke up into sleep paralysis where there was a big figure standing by me. And again, I say this in my other video, I'm not sure if this happened in my sleep paralysis state or in real life, but I remember the sheet being thrown over my head and just being suffocated, like something was either strangling me or sitting on my chest, like I couldn't move. And I had so many experiences like that. That's just one of the most notable ones. I was being constantly attacked. Even in my house, I had another friend come over who I don't know if she would say she was a witch, but she always felt like she could kind of discern spiritual energies or whatever. And I hadn't told her anything. And she said that she feels and sees things in my house when she comes over. And that was, I mean, terrifying for me because I had been dealing with this for so long, seeing shadows, hearing things, my washer starting randomly, and then above all else, just the weight of the depression and the self-harm that I was dealing with was so, I can't even describe how miserable and alone and dark it was. And that in and of itself, I think, was a spiritual attack for sure. I was weak, I was vulnerable, I was opening up doors by basically telling people that they are telling the demonic energies that they could come in. I was dabbling in that. So yeah, I mean, that was just a terrible part of my life. And I forgot if you asked me another question. Sorry. You can ask it again.
No, that's good. That's good. It seems to me like a lot of this left-wing rebellion is looking for a sort of meaning in life. These people seem almost in some way broken. Now, that's not to say that we should underestimate them. Many of them can be violent and evil, and you'll get into a little bit later with stalking and even stuff like that. So it's not to, don't get too soft on them, of course, I say to the audience, but there is a brokenness there. There's something they're looking for, the one thing that they want to reject, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for God. They're looking for Jesus. And so you talked about being pregnant, though. Let's talk about that and kind of move into your conversion story. What was going on here? So you got pregnant at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about what you thought about abortion with regard to that,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that post that you saw that really changed things for you.
Yeah, I found out I was pregnant with my first son in March of 2021, and I was not, I mean, I was in a relationship with my now husband, but I was not financially stable. I had just quit my job. It was a terrifying moment for me, and I was very pro-choice at that point still. So I did consider abortion with my son. The first thought in my mind was I need to have an abortion. I talk about this too, and even in my pro-life apologetics, how important the fathers are in these situations, because I truly do think if my boyfriend at the time had not come in and been excited for me, showing him the positive pregnancy test and saying, we can do this, we got this, I don't know if I would have my son now, which is a terrible thought. But that's why, fathers are so important in this discussion. And, I went to my first ultrasound appointment when he was 11 weeks old. And I was so nervous because I knew I was pro-choice and I had been dealing with that thought in my head for the couple weeks leading up to the ultrasound. And I saw my son, little arm nubs and little legs, and he was literally like doing flips in my uterus to the point where the ultrasound tech couldn't really get a good picture of him. I still have like blurry little photos of him. And I saw a little human inside of me, and I heard his heartbeat. And the doctor was measuring him and figuring out how far along I was. And my mom came with me to that appointment too, and she was calling him her grandchild at that point. And I was like, man, I'm seeing this little human inside of me. Like, it really started making me think about this stuff. And the post that I mentioned that you talked about, one of my friends from the same punk alternative scene had posted a Facebook post that said something along the lines of, I'm sick of people hating the term pro-abortion. I am pro-abortion. I think abortion is great. I think it's necessary. I think we need it. I'm not pro-choice. I'm pro-abortion. And that really did not compute with me. I was very pro-choice, but I always hated the term pro-abortion. So I remember just commenting something very nicely, like, hey, I'm on your side. I think we need abortion, and we need abortion access for sure. And I'm not pro-life at all. But don't think that we should be talking about how abortion is great, abortion is awesome, and everyone needs it. And I don't think we should be using the term pro-abortion specifically because I think it gives pro-lifers more ammo against us. Like, we should be pro-choice and we should understand abortion is a hard decision. And, the safe, legal, and rare kind of thing that was from the 90s, And I, like I said in my testimony video, was jumped in those comments. I had people that I had never talked to, met at all, that were just friends of hers, telling me that I was brainwashed by white men, that I was brainwashed by pro-life people, that maybe even my account had been hacked and it wasn't really me talking about this. And I kept replying back like, guys, I'm on your side. I'm not anti-abortion. I just don't think that we should be saying that we're pro-abortion. We have to understand it's a really bad thing and it's a hard decision that should be there only when it's needed. And when I was being attacked by all these people, that really set me off. I mean, I wouldn't say I immediately turned pro-life. It was going to be a couple months before that happened. But I was like, I don't think I want to be involved in this group anymore. This is crazy. And then seeing her post getting a bunch of likes and seeing other posts like it after that, I just could not associate myself with at least those people. And I really tried for a long time to find a group of more sane pro-choice people. But paired with my pregnancy and consistently seeing my son on ultrasound and feeling him move inside of me, eventually a couple months later, I was like, screw it. I am pro-life. These are humans and we can't just be killing them, man. Like, they're tiny humans. So yeah, that was kind of the switch from pro-choice to pro-life.
Yeah, you talk a little bit of there about like the subversiveness of leftism and the the fact that you almost yourself were kind of bamboozled into thinking that the left supported something that it kind of didn't, right? You thought, well, when we say pro-choice, that's what we mean, right? We
Mhm.
say pro-choice, so that must mean what it means, right? We're just helping people with choice. But when it comes to the in crowd and what's said a little bit more behind closed doors, that was obviously like a
Mhm.
public post, but even so, there, the main traffic's going to be people who agree with it.
Yeah.
You know, it, it turns out, wait a minute, we're not really as pro-choice as we like to put out to the public. It turns out, no, Evelyn, you're the confused one.
Hmm.
The real position is pro-abortion. We like abortion. We support abortion. It's not just about choice. Obviously, there's a factor there, but this is a good thing. It's
Hmm.
not safe, legal, and rare, right? There's nothing that should be rare about it. If it really is no different than, getting your tonsils removed. And in fact, it's actually even better than that. It's empowering,
Yep.
right? It's actually good. Then abortion is good. It's not just about having a choice. This is the choice you should make. And we see that a lot with even the way the early feminists treated women in the workplace, right? Simone de Beauvoir said something to the effect of, if we can't allow women the choice to stay at home, because if we do, they'll pick that every time. So what we
Hmm.
really need to do, the idea is press them to make the opposite choice, right? It's not this, oh, we're just kind of in the middle. We just care about people, deciding for themselves. Really, we believe there's a good and a good, and a beautiful in the world,
Hmm.
and it's abortion. But of
Yep.
course, as we know, abortion is the ugliest
Oof.
rejection of truth you can possibly come up with. And
Hmm.
so that's the real position there. And it's interesting that you yourself were even shocked, even as someone who's quite radical yourself.
Hmm.
So, you talked about your reactions, brainwashed by white men. I know in your testimony video, you
Hmm.
you said you also were told you had internalized misogyny.
Yep.
The idea that you could even think different than them is, you must have just, your brain just doesn't work, you
Yeah.
know and it just goes to show you the echo chamber of it all.
Hmm.
And it sounds like that was just too much for you. It was almost such a culture shock that
Hmm.
you're like, I don't know what to do with this. You said in your video, yeah, I realized the logical conclusion was, if these people are insane, I'm insane.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a huge turning moment or turning point for me. I mean, after that point, I really started to backtrack away from all leftism. This was probably mid 2021. I was almost halfway through my pregnancy and going through, talking to my mom because I was pregnant and scared and alone and everything. So I rekindled my relationship with her. and just how she would show me, for example, like full clips of what Trump said instead of just what the left had clipped and shoved to me. Or, even my dad showing me evidence that Donald Trump actually gave all of his salary to charity when he was president. Like, I had him in my mind as some racist and homophobic and misogynistic pig who just wanted to be president to, benefit himself and get more money and whatever, and give tax cuts to the rich and all of this stuff. And it just took the things in my life, me being shown the insanity of the left and me really internalizing it and being like, I'm associating with these people. I believe the same things that these people believe. And now I'm seeing it from this kind of outside, half outside perspective at that point, where these people are insane. And like you said, if they're insane, I'm insane. And, through my parents doing what they were doing, it just slowly, slowly, slowly started pecking away at me. And, I think it was, I don't know an exact date, but it was sometime late summer of 2021 that I remember posting something about being pro-life. And I had been kind of hinting at it a little bit slowly because I was still very into social media. So I would just post things on Facebook that were just asking questions. This was during COVID. And I would just ask questions or post funny memes about how COVID can't get you if you're sitting down at a table, but it can get you when you're walking to the table. Funny things like that. And I would have some of my leftist friends commenting and laughing at it and stuff. I'm like, how are you not seeing how this is what you're supporting here? I remember even posting something about not being pro-life, but being pro-abortion. And one of my friends commenting too, like, yeah, this just gives those crazy pro-lifers so much more ammo and so much more power. We can't be saying this, whatever. And it's like, how are you not seeing it? How I've been posting subtly for so long. How are you not seeing this happening? And why are you still on that side? So yeah, it took a lot of things to finally pull me out of it, but I finally was like, I can't keep pretending. I can't keep, going through trying to find sane sects of the left. Like I couldn't find it. There were none of them. They were all insane and psychotic. So, I was like, man, I'm done with this. I don't care who hates me, who rejects me. I have to be truthful. And I came out as pro-life, as crazy as that sounds. And the reaction was pretty bad, actually.
Yeah, let's hear about that, because you told us in your original video that you lost about 85% of your friends. That was the backlash against you converting, even softly, away from this.
Yeah. And 85% is just an estimate. I didn't actually do math, of course, but I remember I was popular in the scene. I had so many friends. People were taking my picture. People were, I was on everybody's Instagram pages. People loved me and I loved them, right? I'm a very sociable, bubbly person. And so I got along with so many people. And as soon as I started even just asking questions, like even before I had fully come out as conservative and Christian and pro-life, even just asking questions about, how are males actually women? Like, what do we mean by this? I was getting hate messages just from that. And as soon as I started posting definitively, I am this, you guys are wrong, this is crazy to believe this stuff, there was a blow up in the scene. I mean, I had people DMing me, randomly blocking me, sending hate comments towards me, making videos about me, or taking my own videos and making like smearing posts about them. So many people who had just, like a couple weeks ago been congratulating me on my pregnancy, saying they were going to send me gifts and saying how much they love me and how proud they are of me. And I just changed what I believed, and I was never hateful or mean to them. It's not like I changed what I believed and I started attacking them. I just started posting about what I believed now. And that was enough for, like I said, probably 85%. I know really only my boyfriend, my best friend, and like a couple other people didn't hate me at that point. And I lost like the entire punk scene that I was in. All of them hate me now. And one of them, I talk about this in my testimony video a little bit, actually like cyber stalked me for a very long time, where he would make new accounts to send me harassing messages. And it lasted years. He'd do it for like a week or two and then stop. And then a couple months later, come back on a different account. He would follow me. He would make posts about me. And even just maybe like a month ago, he tried to friend me on Snapchat. which I don't even use Snapchat like that, but he somehow found my Snapchat and tried to friend me on Snapchat. He even had his now girlfriend use her account and stalk one of my pro-life accounts that I used to be involved with, a pro-life organization. So I mean, they went absolutely insane, and it was very isolating and very hard to lose all of those friends and to have them so publicly hate me. I couldn't come to shows. I was put on, I don't know if I was officially put on a blacklist, but they were telling me, they used to post the address of the shows on the little flyer on Instagram for the show.
Yeah.
They stopped doing that because they didn't want me to show up. So you had to DM someone to get the address. And of course, if they
Mm.
saw the DM, they wouldn't give me the address. So like I was blacklisted from all of these places, and everyone blocked me and hated me and slandered me and harassed me for a good couple months. And the one
Wow.
stalking to this day. So
Yeah, well, it's kind of a strange thing because on the right, there's probably more of an instinct to convert people back, say, well, hold on, wait, why did you change your mind here? What's going on? Rather than blacklisting and hating and stuff like that. Usually we want to help people to
yeah.
think clearly, and that's what I do on my channel. Shout out to myself here. Subscribe if you've gotten it this far. But that brings me to another question, which this is a really genuine question of mine.
Mhm.
Do you think that the left truly loves people? We know that they claim love and compassion as primary values, but do
Mhm.
you think people who turn on you the moment you disagree with them and, will hate you, block you, stalk you just for making different mouth sounds, as you said in your original video, do you think that those people truly know what a friendship is?
Yeah, that's hard to answer. I think there's always aspects of these people because I knew them personally, right? There are aspects of them that are good and are compassionate. I think a lot of what leftism stems from is good. And then I think they twist it and they push it too far to where it becomes something so evil. So I think that they do love people, and I think they do have a genuine concern and compassion for the people they claim to. The problem is that they, number one, are wrong in most of their ideological beliefs, but number two, they don't have any space for ideological disagreement or diversity. They have all of this love for people that they view as victims. They themselves want to be victims. We talked about the how depression is kind of seen as cool, neurodivergence is seen as is pushed as cool, and being LGBTQ, being queer is cool. And they do this because they want to be a victim themselves and they want to protect other victims. And I truly think a lot of them do have that actually in their heart. They want to be kind and compassionate to people. But, and I don't know if it's the media or the left as a group as a whole, they have just started to be so intolerant of thought diversity. And it's partially due to the media calling everyone Nazis and fascists and everything, and they don't want to be that, and they want to hurt people who are that. So yeah, it's complicated. I think they can love people, but they don't. I don't know. They don't know how to do it the right way. They don't know how to be compassionate towards people who think differently than them.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of questions left and
Yeah.
so little time. Oh, but we'll try to get through these ones quick.
Yeah.
And yeah, why don't we I'll just go down the list because I have so many amazing questions here.
Yeah.
So you explored everything out there. You it was drugs, sex, witchcraft, even a throuple. I know. So it's going so far into the
Disgusting.
degeneracy. But you and your friends you described were more depressed and miserable than ever.
Mhm.
How can this be when these sorts of things are supposed to make us happy? I thought those were good things.
Yeah. Well, and this is something I actually wrote down, something that I wanted to talk about specifically with this question. None of these things provide fulfillment because they are not virtuous. So they are all super flashy and attractive. The drugs, the sex, the hedonism is so attractive because it gives you a quick high, or it gives you a quick sense of belonging, of being loved. It gives you even just, you can have fun more if you're drinking or whatever it is. And you're chasing that. I think all humans kind of inherently are chasing that. but they're not rooted in anything virtuous. They're not rooted in love. They're not rooted in temperance. They're not rooted in these virtues that are what cultivate good lives. And so what you're doing is you're taking something that feels good for a minute and you're trying to chase that over and over and over and over until it consumes your entire life. Whereas if you're trying to live virtuously, you might have, it might not be as fun in the moment, but what you're doing is you're creating a life that is overall better. It's not only healthier for you, it's healthier for your relationships, it's healthier for the world and the community if we are all not on drugs, not having sex with everybody, not doing witchcraft and fornicating. And when we are living virtuous lives, we are more positive in our communities, we are more positive with ourselves. And it takes discipline and it takes sacrifice to do those things. But that's what brings about true joy and true happiness and true peace. People talk all the time about how they see pictures and videos of me from the left and my eyes have changed. I have an inner peace. I have something, some people call it the Jesus glow. I like that term too. But it's just because I'm not chasing those hedonistic things anymore and I'm chasing true eternal joy with Christ.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's crazy how many lies about identity and freedom appear so attractive these days, even to people who know that they're miserable
Mhm.
in chasing these lies. It's just incredible. So you're pro-life now. Just kind of a brief answer on this one. Do you think the feminist movement is more about helping women or about hating men and God, especially with relation to the abortion issue? Do you see anything poetic in that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% feminism nowadays, at least. There could be an argument maybe for feminism of the olden days, but nowadays it's straight just worshiping yourself. It's again making a victim out of yourself and worshiping yourself in a way that makes you hate other people. And especially with the abortion issue. I mean, it's the satanic quote, or not quote, maybe mantra of do what thou wilt. Instead of thy will be done, it's do what thou wilt. They want to do everything for selfish reasons, and they hate men partially because they've been told to. They hate God because God has specific roles for males and females, and they view those roles as oppressive and bad. So it's really just a reaction to, what they think about men and God. And it hasn't become lifting women up. They won't help women out of poverty, or they won't help women choose life for their children. They'll just push abortion and say, well, I support your right to choose, so get out of here now. They don't actually care about women. They hate God.
For sure. And men, they want all
Yeah.
the privileges of masculinity, but none of the responsibility.
Yep.
I don't
Correct.
see many feminists advocating to become bricklayers or
Mhm.
to equalize the amount of garbage truck drivers and sewage
Yeah.
workers who are
Or people on oil,
female.
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. That's interesting. So uh, let's talk about beauty for a moment. Why do you think Um, why do you think that they dress the way that they do? This is an interesting question to me,
Yeah.
this idea of rejecting natural beauty, because as we can all see, you are a very attractive lady, you got beautiful hair, and yet, if I look at the before pictures of what you used to look like, my gosh, the short hair,
Yeah.
every color of the rainbow.
Yep.
Why does that happen? We've all wanted to know the answer. Why do leftists dye their hair blue?
I think it's part of, what we've been talking about needing to be so different. You need to not look like me. Like, 2019 me would hate what I look like now. They want so badly to be different, and they think the best way to be different is to look ugly, I guess. I don't know why. Um, a lot of them, for me, the piercings and how I dressed very provocatively all the time. I was seeking attention from men, and horrible men. I'll say leftist men are awful. So they're, seeking attention in all of the bad ways, and they're wanting to be victims. And so if they look a certain way, they can claim, oh, that person looked at me wrong, and I'm a victim because this person didn't hire me because I have tattoos, even though it's obviously not true. They didn't hire you because you weren't good at the job. But they use it as like a coping mechanism and kind of like a mask so that they don't have to deal with reality in many ways.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. I like to hear it from someone who's been on the other side. Well,
Yeah.
we're glad you look the way you do now, and you don't
So
look
am
like
I.
a crazy, you know,
Psycho?
septum piercing liberal. So,
I had so many
but
facial piercings. Oh my goodness.
oh yeah, for sure. So, I guess philosophically speaking, do you think that physical transformation can reflect spiritual transformation?
I think sometimes it can. So I wouldn't say like blanket statement, yes, because I, first of all, know of very strong Christians who do look alternative or who do dye their hair or have piercings or whatever. And, what they looked like before, again, before they were saved by Christ, there's something about the peace. You can see that they're not peaceful. Their eyes, like I said before, are crazier. So I don't know if it's necessarily, someone is going to look bad and dye their hair or whatever, and then they're going to look more conservative or normal if they've been saved. I think it's more about the way that you carry yourself will change. You'll definitely start to care about yourself more, like your body, your health, what you eat, exercise, and that kind of stuff. And that can just bring out a natural glow. But then also, they're not, screaming their lungs out because someone won the presidency that they don't like. And so like hate and rage can show itself even whether you look like me or you look like, I don't know, Jeffree Star, right? It can show itself in any way. So I wouldn't say it's like just that, but I think you can see more of the inner beauty shine in people who have peace with Christ.
Sure, for sure, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, why do you think Satan targets women with particular lies about the body, beauty, and power?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think it's because, first of all, in our society, I do think that women's bodies are, very important and very sexualized, obviously, and people focus way too much on them, I think. But then our power is held in our beauty in a lot of ways. And I think that what he does is he plays on women's, I don't know if it's natural insecurity, but I think a lot of what women want is to be attractive to men and to be attractive to other people in general. And so if he can target that and make them feel bad about themselves, make them feel like they have to use their body in bad, again, I don't know what I could say, in bad ways to get what they want. I think it's just kind of the easiest way because that's what, women are in this society. We are viewed for our beauty and for our bodies, and we've been told, specifically with the power thing, we've been told that we don't have power. And so a lot of times he'll just target that part of our ego of you need to look this way and you need to, try and get the power back from the men because it's just what is easiest for him. And it's so easy for women to fall down that trap. Again, I don't know if we're like hardwired for it, but I don't know a woman out there who doesn't want to be beautiful and doesn't want to have power in some way because it's just, what we've kind of been told by our society.
Yeah, I'd agree with that to some extent. I don't think I would ever say beauty is a bad thing, but I would say that yeah, it can be used to get bad things, right? You talked
Yeah.
about doing spicy things and
Yeah.
maybe going down some bad paths. Just because you certainly do have some power. That is a power that women definitely have. The idea
Yeah.
of attracting men and uh, doing unsavory things with them that they shouldn't be doing because it's
Yeah.
easy, right? It's a
Yeah.
very quick way to do things. It might be for fun. It might even be just to take advantage of them. There's women who, oh, hey, I just go out on dates with guys so I can get a free lunch, right?
Hmm.
And that's a very abusive way of using the talents that God has given you,
Yeah.
right? And just because you can get away with something, you're not going to get caught with that. Or if you do, oh well, he's already paid the bill,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the fact is, like, we need to think of a higher calling. We need to say, okay, hold on, I have power and it's for a purpose.
Mhm.
My beauty is a good thing.
Mhm.
My fertility is a good thing. These are good things, but they need to be done and used appropriately, for my
Yeah.
husband, not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry down the street, right?
Yeah. For sure.
So, um, let's talk about what gets through to the secular left? You spoke about this from a personal experience, but Can you give us any sort of secret insights, any sort of things that you heard from your left-wing friends when you were talking with them? Did they ever see a video or hear a phrase or something that they shared with you privately gave them doubts about their beliefs? Like, oh man, I heard this the other day and it just, I don't know, it troubles me. It makes me think maybe leftism isn't right or something. Was there any sort of secret sauce to that?
Sadly, none of my friends ever did that. The farthest they would go is, maybe show me a clip of some conservative influencer or Trump or whatever, and they would just make excuses for why they were wrong, or they would say that they were whatever type of phobic or ist that there is out there. And that would be it. And because they were in an echo chamber along with me, we would just laugh and say, haha, yeah, that guy's a fascist, and then just move on with our lives. But for me specifically, I think one thing, which is what I try to do now, is really just asking people questions, asking them to fully flesh out what they believe. Because one of the biggest things that helped with, talking to my dad specifically and bringing me out of leftism was him literally just asking me what I believed now. And even, my little sister, I talked about this in my video too. She asked me, well, if you're not a Christian, what are your beliefs? And me trying to stumble through what I believed was really embarrassing. And so I think a lot of this, how we can reach the left has to do with making them flesh out their opinions to you, making them tell you why they believe what they believe, and asking so many questions to the point where most of the time they're either going to freak out and scream at you and call you whatever name on the planet, or maybe, one out of 1,000 of them might actually just say, huh, I actually don't know. I'm going to go do some more research on that. And maybe their research will, actually bring them out of that psychosis. So, I mean, it's just, the questions are seeds. Just keep planting those seeds and making them, like, force them to tell you and think through what they actually believe.
Yeah, for sure. That kind of went viral not too long ago with Matt Walsh's "What is a woman?" question,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? When he made that famous. It was crazy because everybody knows what it is, but there's
Mhm.
only one side that can actually admit to what it is.
Mhm.
And if you don't have that, you just stumble over your words.
Yeah.
And so, that's the other thing too, is um, even asking people, what is a fascist? You throw that word around. What does that even mean? Can you define it?
I
And
don't know.
most of them can't, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, is there, let's see. Okay. What is the most beautiful and freeing part about following Jesus compared to your old life? And what do you think conservative Christianity has to offer people? Why should they be a conservative Christian?
Yeah, I think the most beautiful and freeing part of my life now in following Christ is, I'm going to say it again, the inner peace, and my life has meaning now. I am happily married. I have 2 children. We hope to have many more children. And it's just the idea of living a life for God, raising my children for Him and raising them to know Him. And, my husband is amazing. Having that union, having our relationship with Christ, or our marriage rooted in Christ, has been really amazing. I mean, we've had our downfalls and everything, but we always come back to Christ, and it's helped us so much. So I just have like this new meaning. I'm not stuck in the cycle of hedonistic act after hedonistic act and, being depressed. I haven't had any of those depression or, self-harm thoughts or anything pretty much since I came out of that. It just disappeared. I laid it at the foot of the cross, and I do that every single day, and it's been so freeing. Like, I actually have something to live for now. As far as what conservative Christianity offers people, I think it offers everything we've been talking about. Number one, you will have answers to basic questions like, what is a woman, or what is a fascist? Number two, you will be able to form, I think, more connections with people because you're not so caught up in being filled with rage all the time. Number three, you won't constantly be thinking about how you can be a victim. That gets exhausting when you're looking around for it all the time. And specifically with Christianity, again, it gives your life purpose. You'll be saved. You'll have Christ by your side. You can talk to all the time. You'll be exposed to a great community of people who will love you and support you and help you. Again, not saying every Christian is perfect. I know someone will comment, I had a bad experience. Not every Christian is perfect. That's actually the point of being a Christian, is we acknowledge that we're really bad and that we need a savior, but we're working to get better. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's any downside, especially to Christianity. It gives your life purpose and meaning and fulfillment, and you won't be such a miserable shell of a person anymore. At least that was my experience, and that's what I hope that other people who come to Christianity and conservatism too would feel.
Interesting. It sounds like for all the talk of empowerment on the left, you have experienced the most empowerment
Mhm.
in actually letting go of leftism. That's actually where you found the most power, it
Yeah,
seems.
for sure.
Well, um, speaking of conservatism and what you think about it, what do you think conservatism would become if it lost its Christian roots? Like if this country just had atheist conservatives or secular conservatism, would that be still better than the left? Would it still be conservatism at all? What do you think about that?
As far as if it would be conservatism, maybe. I think that Christianity does have a lot to do with conservative values and beliefs, and I think that I talk about all the time about how the left, they can't define things like good or bad. They don't, they believe morality is subjective. They can't define what a woman is, all of this kind of stuff. And while I think that there are secular arguments you can make for these things, I think if we lost our faith, if conservatism lost its Christian roots, I think it would fall apart for the most part. I don't think it would be as strong as it is, especially, since Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's been really strong lately. I think that we are all rallying around our faith, and we are, the Bible sales shot through the roof. People were attending church. It's so important to conservatism to be Christian. And without it, I think we would just be kind of in the same space as leftists. Maybe we have different opinions about homosexuality or transgenderism, but we wouldn't have anything to root that in. So it would just be leftists and conservatives screaming about what boils down to basically which ice cream flavor is best when they're talking about morality. Because without God, you can't have objective morality, and you can't have, a lot of these conversations would just fall apart. They would become meaningless if you don't have Christianity, at least on one side of the aisle.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think that it would still be superior to leftism because it is based in fundamental truths
Mhm.
and the truths that God has put in this world. But I think that it would still be dangerous. I think when you look at secular conservatism, it still has a sense of being lost. Like you say, it's like picking your favorite ice cream flavor.
Yeah.
How do you know what is good? How do you know that?
Yeah.
You're just pond scum that's evolved into a hairless ape. And I'm not even saying necessarily that you have to reject evolution or anything like that. Maybe you do believe in it. It's totally fine. But I'm just saying the point is, if that's all you are, and that's the only story about you, how do you know that your brain has been evolved to find truth at all? How do you know
Yeah.
it's not just, hey, eat some sweet fruit and have lots of
Monkey brain. Yeah.
monkey bunging around and
Yeah.
make a baby and there you go, and that's all there is to it.
Right.
You're really just a sophisticated rock. Both of
Mhm.
you were made of atoms,
Yeah.
and that's frankly what the left tells us, right?
Yeah.
You're just a cluster of cells. Well, hold on, there's a pretty big difference between the cluster of cells growing inside of Evelyn when she gets pregnant and the cluster of cells you find hanging out on a doorknob,
Yeah.
some sort of microbe or something like that. Those are
Mhm.
very fundamentally different things.
Yeah.
And that's what God gives you. It gives you meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And there's this strange sort of self hatred that actually comes with abortion. We think of it as sort of a hatred of the child, and it is that. But it's
Mhm.
also sort of a self flagellation in some sense, in the way that you're looking at an ultrasound picture of the same creature you are.
Mhm.
It's just back in time. That's what you were. And yet you say that's worthless. Well, if that's worthless there, you can say all you want. Well, it develops worth, and that's why I'm valuable. But do you
Yeah.
really believe that? If
Yeah.
it's all just extrinsic and there's nothing intrinsically valuable, and it's just about what do I think about you or what does everybody else think about you, you're basically as worthless as everyone else is.
Yeah.
And so you're just a clump of cells, right? Is usually the response the pro-lifers give. But it's so true. That's literally what you are. You're a clump of cells.
Yep.
But you're not more than that. And Christianity says, no, you are a clump of cells, but you're more.
Yeah.
You are created with a purpose by God and a God who loves you and wants a relationship with you.
Yeah.
So why don't we wrap things up with these last few questions here? People are probably wondering, you have a child now, and you've gone through this whole story. What are you going to do in terms of how you raise your children? Because this is an apologetics channel after all. We're trying to help people not go down these paths. What would you do different than maybe your parents did, or what would you keep them away from or expose them to that would help them down that path?
Yeah. I love my parents. I think that they did everything right. I think all of this falls on me for doing what I did. My parents raising me the way they raised me is the reason why I was able to come out of that psychosis, I think. If they hadn't been the way they had been, then I probably would still be in it. So, as far as how I'm going to raise my children, obviously going to be very strong in our faith. We pray all the time. I want them to know Jesus as much as possible. But one of the bigger things that I think, in terms of what I'm going to teach them, is I'm going to teach them how to think and not what to think. I said this on a podcast that I was just on, actually, is so many children are taught, even by conservative parents, all across the board, actually, they're taught what to think. Their parents tell them the answers to things. They give them the answers to things, whether it's, giving them the answers to math problems or giving them the answers to social issues and things that they believe about the world and religion and politics. And too often, it just becomes an echo chamber in your own home of, I don't want to use the term forcing your belief onto your children, but it kind of, where your child asks a question because they're curious and they're a young human and they're doing this for the first time and they don't know anything. And you just tell them what you think. What I think is a better way, and what I think my parents did a lot, was they would tell them or tell me what they thought about things. But they raised me in a way where I was able to think about things and do my own research on things and actually walk through logically what I was looking at and what I was believing. And I know I got caught in a momentary psychosis, but for the most part, that's what I was even doing on the left. I was really trying to, at the very least. I was just being fed lies. That was the difference. But if you don't teach your children how to think, then what's going to happen is they might be a good conservative Christian until they move out. And then when they move out and they go into a leftist college, or they get leftist friends, or, if they move to a big city that's very blue and atheist, then what they've learned is the authorities around you tell you what is true and they tell you what to believe. So now the authorities around me have changed, and I don't have any way to challenge what they're telling me because I wasn't taught how to. So now I'm just going to adopt the views of the authorities and my peers around me. So I think that's my biggest advice to parents and how I'm going to be raising my children is teach your kids how to think, not what to think.
Yeah, well, that's good advice for sure. I think, yeah, definitely teaching people the process of thinking and showing them the justification. Why do we believe what we believe,
Mhm.
right? I mean, if I'm going to say Donald Trump is a fascist, or I'm going to say Donald Trump isn't a fascist, I need to know what a fascist is,
Yep, exactly.
right? It's an essential aspect to either side. That's what
Yeah,
both sides should be doing, but unfortunately, we really only see that coming from one direction at times.
yeah.
I guess the final question we have here is, what would you tell someone who is in the spot where your old self was? What would you tell that person? Someone's watching right now and they're left wing and they've maybe just heard your story and they think you've got some interesting things to say and they've stayed this long. What message would you tell them?
Snap out of it. No. I would probably tell them that they don't have to continue feeling the way that they're feeling. I think for the vast majority of leftists, they are where I was. They're, hedonists, they're chasing that high, they're trying to fill that void. You don't have to do that. You don't have to try so hard to stand out in order to matter as a person. You matter as a person because you're created in the image of an almighty God. You don't matter as a person because your hair color is cool, or you listen to the right music, or you have the right political views. You can stop feeling miserable and sad and lonely and you can find the one who will fill that void in you, and you will be all the better for it. And you might lose some friends and some people, but you will find an amazing community of people who have logic and reasoning behind them, and above all will encourage you in your walk with Christ. I mean, that's the biggest message of all that I can give you, is that Christ is waiting for you, and your life will be so much better and so much more fulfilled and will have more purpose if you follow him.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll just say this, I think, Evelyn, your life is a powerful reminder to all of us that no one is beyond God's reach.
Yeah.
And the gospel doesn't just save souls, it restores beauty, it restores truth, it restores purpose. And that's what you're doing right now. You have purpose. You're following Christ, and even you've got your own YouTube channel and pro-life nonprofit that you're making. That'll all be linked in the description for people. But thank you so much for sharing your story. And yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was awesome to talk to you, and I always want to spread my message and hope that I can help even one person, that God will use me to reach them. So it was great talking to you.
absolutely. Well, until next time, everyone, stay rooted in Christ and keep standing for life from womb to tomb.